International education, the classrooms, the staff rooms, the lives built far from home. This is The Common Room. I'm Joshua Sussex. Let's talk. Jasmine is an educator entering her 12th year with teaching and leadership experience across Hong Kong, the United Kingdom and Malaysia. She began her career as an English teacher in Hong Kong, where she later became head of English and a member of the senior leadership team leading whole school curricula, programs and gifted education initiatives. After 7 years, Jasmine moved to the UK to broaden her perspective as a primary homeroom teacher before continuing her international journey in Malaysia. She is now in her 3rd year teaching in Malaysia and has recently stepped into the role of assistant head of primary. Throughout her career, Jasmine has been passionate about creating purposeful learning experiences that inspire curiosity, independence, and meaningful thinking. More recently, her experiences across different cultures have shaped a growing interest in school culture and how educators can build communities where both staff and students feel they truly belong. Most conversations about international education focus on why to make the leap. This one deliberately turns that around. Jasmine's career has taken her from the UK to Hong Kong and now Malaysia, and alongside her partner, as a teaching couple, navigating this path together. She's developed a genuinely honest view of what this life costs, as well as what it offers. This episode explores why international education isn't always the automatic answer, what changes when the decision involves 2 careers rather than one, and the cultural awareness that comes from moving between very different systems. This is a genuinely candid episode for anyone weighing up whether this path is right for them, for teaching couples navigating the decision together, and for anyone who assumes the answer is always yes. Welcome, Jasmine.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So, Jasmine, having taught in the UK, Hong Kong, and now Malaysia, what actually surprised you most about how differently each system and school culture operates?
What surprised me the most wasn't that the education systems were different. It was how they looked similar on paper, but how they operated differently day by day. Each place has genuinely shaped me, and looking back, I see them as a continuum rather than 3 separate experiences, because each one has taught me something that I carried into the next. Hong Kong taught me efficiency. I was teaching English while leading STEAM initiatives, organizing overseas trips, collaborating with universities, supporting marketing events, simply juggling multiple responsibilities at once. You had to move quickly, solve problems quickly, and to deliver to a very high standard. So 12 hours a day weren't unusual. And you need to get on with it because this is how they trained you to be organized and resilient. Then I moved to the UK. I assumed teaching looked the same around the world. It didn't. Technology wasn't embedded into everyday teaching and learning to the same extent. There was also a strong emphasis on outcomes and preparing for inspection, which shaped our classroom conversations. But what surprised me most was the professional culture. Work-life boundaries were respected. It was unusual to receive evening emails or weekend emails, and colleagues were comfortable to say, I do not have that capacity right now. These boundaries were not seen as a lack of commitment. It was simply a part of a healthy work culture. There was also a high professional trust, I believe. People felt able to ask questions, express concerns, having like an open conversation without feeling that they were being difficult. Moving to Malaysia has been where those 2 worlds started to come together for me. I brought Hong Kong's efficiency with me. I learned the importance of boundaries from the UK. And Malaysia has been teaching me that leadership is often finding the right balance between the 2, when to move quickly, when to slow down, and how to adapt to the people that you are working with. So if I had to summarize each place in this one sentence, Hong Kong taught me efficiency, UK taught me community and boundaries, and Malaysia is teaching me how to bring 2 together.
That's really interesting. So, how quickly did you realize that difference between Hong Kong and the UK?
I would say the moment when I stepped into the staff room. When I was in a staff room in Hong Kong, everyone got their own workplace and they will work in front of the laptop. You can only hear the sounds of keyboard or the sounds of marking with a red pens. But when you were in the staff room in the UK, people talked to each other. They always start with a question like, "How are you doing today?" Like, it's very awkward for Hong Konger because we feel like asking people, "How are you doing?" if you don't mean it, it will be quite like a waste of time. But then in the UK, it's more relaxed. People treat you as a friend and they would really like to know more about you. And work is not the priority. Your well-being is the priority.
When did you first start realizing that?
I think it came to the topic of cultural awareness. Like for me, I used to think cultural awareness meant learning about people's culture, trying their cuisines, learning their customs, the communication styles, the do and don'ts. But I feel like in Malaysia, I started to realize that cultural awareness begins when you start to challenge your own assumptions. One moment that really stays with me was working with my local TA. Um, like we have 30 minutes before the start of the day. So I would like to utilize the time with the children. I asked my TA, could you help me to read with the children? So in my previous schools, reading with the children means you're listening them to read aloud. You're trying to model fluency when needed, ask a few questions to check their understanding. But after a few days, I realized maybe we interpreted read with the children in different ways because I realized she was sitting silently while the children read independently. I mean, neither of us was wrong, but we were interpreting something that I feel very obvious in a different way. And I feel like there's common sense, but being obvious is actually shaped by your own experiences. And since then, I have to be very explicit, intentional to explain the why behind my expectations, not to give more instructions, but try to share like a shared understanding. So we're doing something that is productive to the children, for the children.
We've spoken about this previously, the area of interest that I have with my research and cultural reflexivity. It's something I can relate to again that I've developed over the years. And it's what are you assuming is normal in this room and what you're assuming is normal when you're having this conversation. Like you say, can you read with the children? Now, that keyword is with, right? The language part there is with. One would assume, or one may assume, that with automatically means together, collaboratively, actively reading together. Whereas another culture, another perspective, another person's experiences, that with just means supervising. It could just mean sitting there and watching. I'm doing it with them. I'm sat next to them. That's what you said to do, right?
Absolutely. Sometimes I feel like I'm nagging mom, but but then I feel like when everything make it not black and white, it's just trying to share what the expectations from both parties. You build a connection as well. You work collaboratively because I don't really like to judge people. I would like to be open minded and choose a way that both of us feel comfortable.
And did you ever experience that in Hong Kong, or was it just very straightforward, very, very clear?
Um, Hong Kong is very different because we are using our first language
Mm.
to communicate with one another. For my school, we were a very policy driven schools. We do follow a lot of procedures, policies, not just for guidance, but for protection as well, because we have to report to different stakeholders. There would be something we could rely on, ensure that we are doing the right thing. Over explaining could be a challenge, could be a problem sometimes, and that's why AI comes to help. I usually would just put what our thinking would be. And then we ask AIs, can you simplify it, but still logically present it to the right audience? And yeah, it was better because we are sharing the same language and we kind of used to the culture already. But since working internationally, people come from different systems, different expectations, different backgrounds. And it's all about you got to experience how the situations make you feel. And most importantly, how you make other people feel in that particular context.
What would be your advice to somebody coming over to Malaysia for the first time, having not taught abroad before, and coming into the, we know, very multicultural, multiple languages, backgrounds, demographics, etc.? What would be your advice to somebody coming into a school environment and looking to make impact?
Be open minded and choose kindness, not as a slogan, but something you demonstrate every day. As you just said, people come from everywhere. Some teachers have taught in a country for 20 years. Others are taking their first step abroad. Some are parents. Some have moved the whole family halfway across the world on their own. And some are still figuring out where they belong. And these experiences shape how we teach, communicate, solve problems, and build relationships. It's very easy to think, this is how I've always done it. It sounds confident, but at the same time, it sounds very arrogant. After a few years in international education, it has taught me that there are often many right ways to achieve the same outcome, the outcome that we all want. So the best advice I would say, listen, observe before you judge. Ask questions before you assume, and be curious before you are very certain about things.
At what point do you say, as a leader, when you're about to make a decision, actually, hang on, no, we do need to do it this way, and this is the reasons why?
Um, Observe, listen, talk to the colleagues, talk to the parents, talk to the students. I mean, at the end of the day, our role is for the students, for the education. Evaluate the whole project, each step. What is the main message? Is it aligned with our vision? If it is yes, try to start with baby steps, get the consensus with a larger group of audience, get more people on board, and do it together, sail a boat together. I think, I mean, after working in Hong Kong for several years as well, like organizing different projects, it's very hard for you to just work on your own. You need to get your teammates together to maximize, to achieve for the sake of the children, for the sake of the students.
What made you want to flip the usual conversation that we have and talk about why international education isn't always the right answer?
Um, I'm I came across a LinkedIn post the other day, and that really made me think. It said, if you have a problem in your own country, going international probably isn't the solution. And I found myself nodding. I think international education is often portrayed as a fantastic opportunity. And in many ways, it is. You get to travel, you got to experience different cultures, you got to grow professional and personally. But that's not a magic fix. If you are struggling with work life balance, relationships at work, managing your finances, moving overseas doesn't automatically solve those problems. In many cases, it can even magnify them because you're on your own without your usual support system, your friends, your families. And in a new country, you are trying to build everything from scratch. And there are plenty of unexpected challenges that people don't talk about. So for me, the question isn't, should I go international? It is, why do I want to go international? If your answer is about curiosity, growth, wanting to experience different culture, I think that's a very strong foundation. But if your answer is trying to escape from something, trying to have a new life somewhere else, I would encourage you to think twice because what I believe is whatever you are running away from, it often get away to catching up with you. They will find you. When I left Hong Kong, it wasn't because I hated teaching there. Quite the opposite. Hong Kong gave me an incredible foundation. It challenged me, stretched me, shaped me into the educator I am today. I left because I wanted to discover whether there were different ways of teaching, living, leading. I always think of an episode of Gordon Ramsay Uncharted, where he worked at a traditional dim sum restaurant. Gordon Ramsay himself is a well-known chef, specializes on Western cuisines, French cuisines. But in that episode, his speed and precision were not as good as the dim sum chefs. His skills weren't wrong, but they weren't the skills that particular environment demanded. And that really resonated with me because I wanted to see how my own skills would translate into different education systems. I wanted to be challenged and I want to become a well-rounded educator and teacher and leader. And looking back, I think that makes the difference. Like I'm not running away from something, I'm running towards growth.
So, as a teaching couple, how does the decision change when it's two careers, not one, being weighed against each other?
It's definitely not an easy decision. I mean, if you're single, just pack your suitcase, take the opportunity that feels right for you. But as a teaching couple, you're making one decision for two careers. I always say, like, we're a team, but at the end of the day, we are still two individuals with our own ambitions, interests, and professional goals. So it isn't really compromising. It's about asking, how can this decision help both of us continue to grow? We actually experienced this ourselves. Before moving to Malaysia, I was offered a position at a prep school in the UK, but my husband didn't. We had some really honest conversations. What if I accepted that offer and he had to rely on supply teaching? What if one of us was progressing professionally while the other was simply trying to find a full-time job? In the end, we decided not to go ahead because we didn't find it being sustainable financially or professionally. It was a difficult decision, but it was a good opportunity. It's not a good opportunity, the right opportunity for us as a couple. But that doesn't mean that we always make the perfect decision. My husband had always wanted to teach in Southeast Asia, so we took a leap together. Penang wasn't my first choice. I assumed Penang is a city, so navigating daily life would be very similar to Hong Kong, to KL, to Taiwan. It didn't. The adjustment was so much bigger than I expected. So one piece of advice I would say is don't just evaluate the school. Evaluate the life you'll be living outside the school gates. Ask yourself, can I build a life here? Can I get around safely and independently? Will both of us have opportunities to grow professionally and personally? Because you are spending 8 hours at school, but you're spending 16 living in that community.
I was going to ask you about the one thing you wish you did before you arrived, and I'm assuming that would be the one thing.
Yeah, I mean, if someone talked to me about it, I would like, can you tell me about the life? Because naturally we go straight to the offer. We look at the salary, we look at the benefits, the curriculum and the school. But we don't really stop to ask ourselves, can we imagine ourselves living there for 2 years, for 3 years? And reality is not every school comes with an instant community or a ready-made support network. Some schools do an incredible job of helping new staff settle in. But others, you will need to take the initiative, take the time to build your own friendships and routines. The school gives you a job. The city gives you a life.
What would you have done or could you have done practically to have a better scope or understanding of the place itself?
As what Ian said, travel, go there to have a look, not as a tourist, but try to stay there for a week. Try their public transport. Look at groceries. See if that's the life you will enjoy. Look around. Are there shopping centers? Are there any hobbies that you could do? You might want to pick up some new hobbies. Would there be a pickleball court nearby? Or would that pickleball court would be like 40-minute commute? So that will not be feasible. So if you're financially stable, if you got the bucks, I would say travel and stay there for a longer period of time, but not just sightseeing. Yeah, definitely. Being more vocal. When you have doubts, really ask them. Like, people enjoy open conversations, but if we have to guess your initiatives, guess your intention, that made conversation not being honest enough.
And so, what has moving between these different cultures actually taught you about cultural awareness and the kind you can't get from a training session?
I feel like cultural awareness starts from when you start challenging your own assumptions. We always arrive with a lot of assumptions, and we believe we know what good teaching, good learning, professionalism looks like. I always love the story of Pride and Prejudice. I mean, at its heart is the story of assumptions. Elizabeth and Darcy, they were judging on each other based on the incomplete versions of one another. And I feel like that happens with international education as well. We always come in and say, this is how I'm going to do it. This is what right. But there's no right or wrong answer. And what I've shared with my experience with TA, we've got to be open minded. I mean, there wasn't just one way to achieve the goal of reading with the children. There are multiple ways. And you have to be recognizing that people interpret the same words in a different way because of their own experiences. Curiosity starts with replacing assumptions with conversations, and that conversation be a good start.
And if you had to sum up what you tell your own younger self before that first move, what would you say?
Give a pat on my shoulder. I did really well. You may not always love every chapter while you're living it, but the difficult moments, the uncertainties, the moments when you question yourself are all part of becoming the person, the educator you were meant to be.
Brilliant. And do you think these experiences that you've had and this journey that you're on, you've developed more cultural awareness and more reflexivity and more interest in different cultures? And therefore, big question, I know, but therefore, do you think that's improved you as a teacher and a leader?
I would say so. Being in Hong Kong, I would say the ethnicity, Chinese, is the majority. Moving to the UK, you've got to aware that, oh, not just Chinese around you. There are more people from different nationalities, different backgrounds. You got to understand more about their religious beliefs, their lifestyles, and got to embrace the diversity. I would say I become more mature because I will think twice, even 3 times, 4 times before I would like to express an opinion. Would that be inclusive? I'm not trying to like, oh, I need to make sure I'm saying the right words, being political correct. It's you gotta be aware of your language because that would affect how people feel. And I think that's what kindness is. I can't really control a lot of things, a lot of people around me, but I can control me, myself. The way how I act, the way how I cooperate, the way how I communicate with one another.
Thank you very much, Jasmine.
Lovely. I'm really like enjoy the moments here. It's an honest conversation. I'm not like I'm still a newbie in international education, but I'm really enjoying the experience.
Brilliant. It's great to hear, and long may it continue.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.